So, Harry and Meghan created the Archewell Foundation. Sounds fancy, right? Like something you'd order at a pretentious coffee shop. I'll have one grande Archewell with extra charity work and a dash of royal drama. Please. But here's the thing about their foundation. It's currently in more hot water than a lobster at a seafood restaurant. And the UK tax authorities are circling like sharks who just smelled blood in the water.
Harry wasn't even there for Archie's 6th birthday. There's clearly trouble in paradise, and she's trying to cover it up, and she thinks that we are stupid enough to fall for that crap.
You know, if you didn't know the story behind the whole lot, you'd think.
The Archewell Foundation was supposed to be their golden ticket to proving they could be successful philanthropists without needing the royal family's help. Instead, it's become their golden ticket to a bureaucratic nightmare that makes royal protocol look like child's play. Apparently, when you're dealing with international tax laws, being photogenic and having a Netflix deal doesn't automatically make your problems disappear into thin air.
Did they take their own photographer with them?
Harry is as erratic and unstable as a lot of us have been speculating.
Do you think the Princess of Wales would have deliberately worn a Victoria Beckham outfit to show some kind of sign?
I think she would have done, yeah. She certainly did.
Now, picture this scene. Harry and Meghan are sitting in their $14 million Montecito mansion, probably discussing their next Netflix documentary about how hard their lives are, when suddenly their accountant calls. Guys, we have a situation with the Archewell Foundation, and by situation, they mean the kind of problem that makes you wish you'd never left your day job. Except their day job was being royal, and they already quit that one too.
Anything quite so strange and bizarre of Prince Harry on a doorbell camera walking around knocking apparently randomly for friends in a street in West London.
I felt it was bizarre.
The foundation's financial records started raising more red flags than a communist parade. UK tax investigators began digging through their books like archaeologists searching for buried treasure, except instead of finding ancient artifacts, they were finding questionable financial transactions that made them go, wait, what exactly is happening here? It's like when your teacher catches you cheating on a test, except instead of getting detention, you might face serious legal consequences. But here's where the story gets juicier than gossip. At a high school reunion, the Archewell Foundation had been receiving donations from sources that made investigators scratch their heads harder than people trying to figure out IKEA furniture instructions. These weren't your typical let's save the pandas contributors. These were people with connections so questionable, they made the foundation's credibility shakier than a house of cards in an earthquake.
Their own doors, and they never shut their own doors when they go places. And so there he was trying to find these friends. He must have a poor memory because, or not seen the friends for a long while because he knocked 3 or 4 doors. And in fact, one housekeeper...
Investigation revealed that the Archewell Foundation's money trail looked like a GPS that kept recalculating its route through every tax haven known to humanity. Funds were bouncing between countries faster than a ping pong ball in a championship match. It was financial hopscotch on an international scale, and investigators were getting dizzy just trying to follow where the money went and why it took such creative detours.
A royal picture taken on a doorbell phone. No, it was bizarre. And but what was strange about that, Matt, was of course that was the day when he was in court trying to get the government to pay for his.
Harry's reaction to the investigation news was reportedly more dramatic than his exit from royal duties. Sources say he was pacing around their mansion like a caged lion, muttering about how this never would have happened if they'd stayed in the palace. Because apparently, his solution to every crisis is to imagine an alternate reality where someone else handles all the paperwork and he just has to show up and wave at people.
He's going to have to pay £1.5 million, by the way, after losing this case. This is a very lengthy, very expensive case to the taxpayer.
Yeah.
And he was in court that week and his lawyers were arguing that his life was at stake in the UK. And then here we have one doorbell photo. We understand there's other CCTV of him in the street at other doors.
Meanwhile, Meghan allegedly went into full damage control mode, which is basically her natural state at this point. She was making phone calls faster than a telemarketer during dinner time, trying to manage the situation before it exploded into another media circus. Because the last thing they needed was more negative press, as their reputation was already hanging by a thread thinner than Harry's hairline. But wait, there's more! The UK authorities discovered that some of the Archewell Foundation's biggest donors had political connections that were more tangled than Christmas lights after being stored in the attic for a year. These weren't just random wealthy philanthropists. These were people with agendas so obvious, they might as well have worn name tags saying, "Hi, I'm here for political influence." The foundation's board meetings must have been more awkward than family dinners after a messy divorce. Picture the scene. Everyone's sitting around a conference table trying to pretend everything's normal while lawyers whisper urgent advice in their ears. It's like trying to have a casual conversation while your house is actively on fire. Technically possible, but nobody's really focused on the small talk.
With the Archie and Lilibet on it, it's just strange. And I think, first of all, I mean, there's some interest. I don't know what Harry is trying to cover up with that hat. I don't know if it's male pattern baldness, but I think that whole thing was so contrived, as you said, Arthur. And I just think that Meghan is the biggest paparazzi.
Their legal team started growing faster than their problems. They hired lawyers to represent their lawyers, and probably had lawyers to explain what the other lawyers were doing. The legal fees alone could have funded several actual charitable projects, but instead, they were going toward figuring out how to explain why their charity's finances looked like a Rubik's Cube that nobody knew how to solve.
If that's the case, well, it is as Samara said, it's just contrived, and that'd be interesting to know who took them. It wasn't bylined. I never saw anywhere. I never saw anybody photographer's name on any of the pictures.
It may well be one of their team with a smartphone, because smartphones
probably,
are great these days. But it really has been a week of
Harry reportedly started having flashbacks to his royal days, when the biggest crisis was choosing which tie to wear to a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Now, he was dealing with international tax investigations, questionable donors, and lawyers who charged more per hour than most people make in a month. It's like going from playing checkers to suddenly finding yourself in a chess tournament where everyone else knows the rules and you're still trying to figure out which piece is the horse. The couple's public relations team was working overtime, spinning the story harder than a washing machine on the fritz. They were trying to frame the investigation as a misunderstanding and a routine inquiry, which is like calling a hurricane a light breeze with trust issues. But the public wasn't buying it. People were starting to connect the dots faster than a kindergarten connect the dots. Meghan's Hollywood friends allegedly started distancing themselves from the foundation faster than people fleeing a sinking ship. Suddenly, everyone who had been eager to associate with royal charity work was mysteriously busy with other projects. It's like when your friend gets into MLM selling essential oils. Asked, you're still friends, but you're definitely not going to their business opportunity parties anymore.
I know, TikTok and Instagram star. What do you make of her Instagram page so far? Is it a hit? Is it achieving what she wants, what her aims are for this page?
I was looking at it the other day for something I was going to write, and it's just quite sad, to be honest. I actually do think that when I look at that page and I look at some of the pathetic photos that
The investigation uncovered that the Archewell Foundation's financial practices were more creative than a preschooler's art project. Money was being categorized in ways that made accountants question their career choices. It was like watching someone try to explain why they bought a yacht as a business expense for their lemonade stand. Technically possible to argue, but definitely raising some eyebrows. Harry's relationship with his family became even more strained, if that was possible. The royal family was reportedly watching the investigation unfold like spectators at a car crash, horrified but unable to look away. Palace insiders were probably thinking, "We warned them about this," while simultaneously being grateful they weren't involved in the mess. It's like watching your ex make questionable life choices after they left you, satisfying in a petty way, but also kind of sad. The foundation's charitable work started taking a backseat to legal damage control. Instead of focusing on helping people, they were focused on helping themselves out of a bureaucratic nightmare. It's like going to a restaurant and spending the entire meal arguing with the waiter about the bill instead of actually eating your food. You're technically still at the restaurant, but you're missing the whole point.
And she's trying to curate this weird cheapo image, in my opinion. It makes me think you left all of that. You left the iconic British royal family so that you could have an Instagram page and post a couple of photos of you picking lemons in an orchard. It really doesn't weigh up, but I think it is where Meghan is most comfortable.
Their PR strategy seemed to involve throwing everything at the wall to see what would stick, like a pasta chef having an existential crisis. One day they were the victims of a witch hunt. The next day they were confident the investigation would vindicate them completely. Their messaging changed more frequently than a teenager's relationship status on social media.
And she's American, and that's the way they work in America. They think that's the next big deal, and perhaps she's got that worked out already.
I mentioned there about popularity. There was, just before we sat down, there was a YouGov poll that was released on royal family favourability.
The investigation revealed that some of the Archewell Foundation's charitable activities were about as charitable as a casino's loyalty program. Sure, technically there were benefits involved, but the house always seemed to come out ahead. Investigators were finding financial arrangements that made them question whether they were looking at a charity or a very elaborate shell game. Harry's friends from his army days were reportedly scratching their heads, wondering how the guy who could organize military operations couldn't figure out basic charity accounting. It's like being great at video games, but unable to figure out how to use the television remote. The skills should be related, but somehow they're not translating.
I think one of the greatest pull factors of the royal family is the mystery behind it all. The fact that people don't know a lot of what goes on behind closed doors. And that's where Meghan's got it all wrong, because she's broadcast her entire life out to us, and we've actually judged it. And we've said that's kind of bland and boring and actually quite sad, to be honest.
The couple's response to media questions about the investigation was more evasive than that of a politician during election season. They hired publicists to handle their publicists, creating a communication chain longer than the line at a popular brunch spot. Every statement had to be approved by so many people, it's amazing they managed to say anything at all. Meghan reportedly started stress-eating organic kale chips, which is like stress-eating cardboard, technically consuming something but not particularly satisfying. Meanwhile, Harry was allegedly stress-playing polo, because apparently when you're rich and in legal trouble, your coping mechanisms are still expensive hobbies that regular people can't relate to. The Foundation's annual report became the most scrutinized document since Harry's memoir. Investigators were going through it line by line, like literary critics analyzing Shakespeare, except instead of looking for hidden meanings about the human condition, they were looking for hidden meanings about financial irregularities. Their celebrity friends started giving them advice about crisis management, which is like getting driving lessons from someone who's colorblind, well-intentioned, but not necessarily helpful. Everyone had an opinion about how they should handle the situation, but most of these opinions came from people whose biggest legal challenge was getting out of parking tickets. The investigation expanded to include their other business ventures, because apparently, when tax authorities start digging, they don't stop until they've examined every financial decision you've made since you learned what money was. It's like having your mom clean your room. She starts with the clothes on the floor, but ends up reorganizing your entire life and questioning your life choices. Harry's polo matches became increasingly aggressive, which his friends attributed to him working through some things. Meanwhile, Meghan's yoga sessions reportedly became longer and more frequent, leading to speculation that she was either achieving unprecedented levels of zen or trying to physically stretch away from her problems. The Archewell Foundation's website started getting updated more frequently than a teenager's Instagram story. Every few days, there were new statements, clarifications, and transparency initiatives that were supposed to demonstrate their commitment to proper governance. It was like watching someone frantically reorganize their desk while their boss was walking over. Lots of activity, but questionable effectiveness. Their legal team's strategy seemed to involve explaining away every questionable transaction with increasingly creative interpretations of tax law. It was like watching someone try to explain why they were found in the kitchen at 2 a.m. with chocolate on their face. Technically, there might be innocent explanations, but the evidence was pretty compelling. The investigation's findings started leaking to the press faster than information from a gossip columnist with inside sources. Each new revelation made the Foundation's practices look more questionable than the last, creating a media-feeding frenzy that made their previous controversies look like minor disagreements about dinner plans. And just when you think this story couldn't get any more ridiculous, the tax authorities announced they were expanding their investigation to include international banking practices. Because apparently, the Archewell Foundation's financial creativity knew no borders, and neither did the investigators' determination to figure out what exactly was going on with all those charitable donations that seemed to take the scenic route to their intended destinations.